Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today is Thursday, the 11th of December, and I am going to start off with a disclaimer, I think. So, the figures and scenarios presented in the following document are based on data available publicly, and it's not any financial, investment, legal, or any other type of advice. As you can read here, the report is created without malice and for interest-based research only. The author is not advocating for anyone to be ejected from any country. So that is the full disclaimer. But for now, we're going to go right to the top before we get to the conclusion. So the question is, let's assess what will happen to the UK market if immigration was reversed. Let's start with the current UK population, the current immigration population not born in the UK, current immigrants that have not lived here for 10 years, and current immigration not Christian, and that type of thing. So versus the property holders and likely effect on the price. So the three categories outlined from that data was baseline numbers for population and migrants, how migrants participate in the housing market, because they don't all buy property, do they? They significantly of them rent. And what would plausibly happen to prices if immigrants were sharply reduced or reversed. And this is a rather large document. I'm not going to be going through the entire document. We'll just touch on some of the things. The document is going to be made available. It is actually already available on my Discord server. So if you have a Discord account, you can click the link in the description of this video and go over to my Discord server, join the community, and in the live streaming material section folder, you'll find this document there for yourself to have a look at. All right, but let's just get down to the nitty gritty. Let's just go over the obvious. So the estimate of the population in the UK is 69.5 million. For some reason, the same person always seems messaging me whenever I go live. I'm not sure why, but he's not messaging me. He's on the Discord server. But anyway, let me just mute my Discord server, otherwise it's going to keep going on in my head. Okay, done. Alright, so I'm back. So foreign-born population in the UK is around 10.7 million, which makes 16% of the population. That seems very high. Alright, so that kind of paints a picture. Around 10 million have arrived in the 10 years. Is that what you're saying? So let's how many have arrived roughly in the last 10 years? So 10 million have not been born in the UK, and 42% of them have arrived in 2011. So 4 million people. Okay, and they say, well, that's just overall figures. That's not relevant here. It states migrants are disproportionately represented in some non-Christian religions, for example, Islam, Hinduism, and Sikhism. Like, duh, yeah, of course. They're also more than likely UK born to report no religion. Alright, fine. So this is just the top end stuff. We haven't got down to the actual conclusion. So the question here is what is the likelihood of migrants actually owning a property? So ownership versus renting. So home ownership rate for UK born people is up to 70%. For non-UK born, it's 47%. Still quite high. So we can skip all this. We can go here. Migrants are a large share of renters, so they're more likely to rent rather than buy. They are a smaller share of owner-occupiers. Okay, so that confirms it. In 2021, 40.6% of London residents were born outside the UK. Yeah, we know that. Okay, next section. If immigration were sharply reduced or reversed, what happens to the prices? So now we get to the nitty-gritty. Well, nearly to the nitty-gritty. So there's 3 scenarios. So when we're asking what will happen to property prices if immigration was reduced or reversed, the 3 scenarios are: net zero migration, sharp negative net migration, so that would mean you start sending people back home, or extreme repatriation scenario. So zero is basically no more coming in. Sharp negative is basically sending some people back, and extreme is sending most or all foreign-born residents back to their home countries, if feasible. I think we can skip on that. Because we're going to cover that in the conclusion. It's quite an in-depth report, as you can see, and a very interesting one. I'm not going to bore anyone in regards to that. I'm not going to read it out. I don't even have the energy to read all this text out, to be honest. So this discusses the religion, which is fine if that's what you're interested in. The short answer: unlikely effect on price. It's still too long for me to go over it. But we're going to go further down, and we're going to go all the way to the summary table. So this is the conclusion. So if you've come to this video wanting to see, just get to the answer and not read the report, well, this is it. But if you do want to read the full report, and it is very interesting, then you need to go to the Discord channel. So if there's zero net migration, the property will fall. Property prices will fall between 3 to 5%. If there is a moderate reversal, i.e., more of a mass migration situation, but not very strict, then the property price will fall between 8 to 12%. If, however, there is something along the lines of a full reversal, where people who are not born in the UK and have arrived about 10 years ago, within 10 years approximately, then that equates to 4 million households, and as a consequence, the property market, or the price of properties, will fall by 35%. Now that's quite significant from an investment point of view. As you can see, the report does include, I've made sure it includes all the links and all the sources. Didn't just want anybody to be going through this without the right type of information. So what does that mean? Well, that means that if you own a property valued at £300,000, then after the reversal of foreign-born migrants that arrived in the last 10 years, that would then potentially be worth under 200,000. There's a chart based on it, and you can view that. Okay, so that is a conclusion. I was going to go through the entire report in a bit more detail. As you can see, it's quite significant. But when it was all compiled together and put together, I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I've got better things to do. And plus, I'm a little bit tired. So as a consequence, I will now do what I wanted to do originally before I decided on the video, is to play an interesting video, but you're going to have to give me a second while I set it up. Bear with me. Interesting. I'm not sure where the video's gone. Okay, let's play this one. Share screen.
We need to build up societal immunity around information manipulation.
In November of 2024, Australia passed the world's first online safety amendment, the Social Media Minimum Age Act, banning social media accounts for under 16-year-olds without parental consent override, effective December 10th, 2025.
From December 10, people under the age of 16 will no longer have access to social media accounts. It's part of a new law to help keep under 16 safer online.
Platforms including TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, X, Reddit, Threads, Twitch, and Kick must take reasonable steps like biometric or ID-based age verification to enforce the rule or face fines up to nearly $50 million.
Every kid is worried about this. They think it's literally their identity online.
The law enjoys broad parental support in Australia, but is fiercely opposed by tech companies, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and Elon Musk, who calls it a backdoor way to control access to the internet.
They will glorify it, and they'll make it sound like a really fantastic thing, and it's completely not that. It's all trickery. It's all to push us into a communist style of living.
Once again, the globalists have hitched what appears to be legislation for the common good to their wagon cart of totalitarian domination, a slippery slope that normalizes mass surveillance, risks sensitive data breaches, isolates teens from educational networks, and may drive minors to unregulated underground apps, setting Generation Alpha up to be surveilled to the nth degree once they reach 16 years of age.
The company is also rolling out notifications warning teenagers of the ban, asking them to verify their age, which can be done in multiple ways: a driver's license, facial recognition, or Connect ID, which proves your identity through a bank account.
Meanwhile, the EU's Digital Services Act, fully applicable since February 2024, imposes systematic risk assessments, rapid illegal content removal, and trusted flagger systems that were heavily influenced by Stanford University's Cyber Policy Center. Orwellian frameworks originally developed under the First Amendment with U.S. government agencies and later exported to Brussels.
Under the DSA, the EU will find private global companies that operate right here in the U.S. Think Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X. Up to 6% of their global annual turnover every time they don't censor certain speech. And that speech is based on extremely vague terms like hate speech, misinformation, and online safety. On the flip side, there's no penalty for censoring too much speech, so corporations will be incentivized to err on the side of over-censoring, helping the EU clamp down on speech it doesn't like and moving the needle toward total narrative control. In other words, if you share something on Instagram that might break the rules somewhere in Europe, Meta will have to remove your post or face a fine of about $10 billion. That's billion with a B.
This same group, the Stanford Cyber Policy Center, brought over the head or deputy head of the Sweden Psychological Defense Agency so that censors in America could learn from censors in Sweden about the best way to psychologically defend the public against populist right-wing news sources, effectively.
There will be custodial terms of 6 months.
The UK's Online Safety Act, fully operational from July 2025, has forced platforms like Substack to demand government ID for access to certain content, triggered Wikipedia high-risk classification threats, and empowered Ofcom to punish insufficient self-censorship.
You know that I've been warning you guys about the Digital Services Act, this online safety law that the EU put forth a few years ago. And one of the requirements that that law has is that to protect children online, certain content has to be age restricted. Obviously, like they're talking about things like pornography or very aggressive or violent material. But also, yours truly has been flagged as someone who creates sensitive content. And so all of my posts now have this sensitivity warning, and you have to actively go and click it and verify your age to be able to see what I post and what I write.
All of this now amplified by cases like Irish teacher Enoch Burke's repeated imprisonment and an indefinite term of imprisonment for defying court orders tied to pronoun policy.
There are two judgments of the Court of Appeal extant with diametrically opposite findings on a most serious aspect of the disciplinary process, i.e., what is the basis for the disciplinary action against Enoch Burke. The disciplinary appeal panel has scheduled a hearing for Saturday, the 13th of December next.
But recent historical precedent strongly suggests these measures will detonate on the launch pad. Kenya's 2022 to 2024 internet shutdowns, India's world-leading blackout record, Bangladesh's failed 2024 nationwide cutoff that hastened regime collapse, Nepal's reversed TikTok ban, and Mexico's throttled protest networks all backfired. VPN and encrypted app usage exploded. Citizens innovated offline and decentralized coordination. Economies suffered massive losses. Courts struck down the restrictions, and public anger intensified rather than subsided. As Australia, the EU, and UK doubled down on age gates at their globalist masters' insistence toward identity verification and algorithmic policing in the name of safety, heavy-handed online censorship will only strengthen resistance as this tyrannical house of cards built on technocracy buckles in the winds of freedom. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Please remember, I can't battle the globalists without your word of mouth, your prayer, and your support. We make it.
It was Christmas in Whitehall. Lord Ollie had just dropped in with a sack full of gifts and cash in a tin. He gave Key a Rolex, gave Vicky some knickers, then lit up a Cuban, raised a glass to his arse liquors. Down the road from their feasting, by a boarded up door, a soldier lay shaking on a piss-soaked floor. He fought for this country, he gave them his all. Now he begs for his dinner, 'cause his country let him fall.
She was 12 when it started. No one heard her cries. They labeled her trouble and said she told lies in the name of diversity. They looked the other way while monsters kept hunting their prey every day.
master. Said you'd fight for the poor, but you kissed every ring to walk through number 10's door. You once marched for the miners, now you side with the whiners. Now you serve foreign masters and bow to the bastards. The old folk are dying while you keep on lying, and our cash is given out to the chosen few. You're a lie, you're a bore, you're a globalist whore. You robbed all our grannies and left them to freeze. You're a joke, you're a tool, you're an embarrassing fool. Merry Christmas, you wanker, now get out the way. The old folk are dying, still you keep lying, and our cash is given out to the chosen few. You lied to our faces, said we'd have a say, but they spit on our flag and cursed Christmas Day. You sold out the nation, then called us all thugs, whilst the boats keep on coming. Don't take us for mugs. The people are rising as your party is dying, and the bells will ring out. We're coming for you. Yeah, we're coming for you. Yeah, we're coming for you.
Mr. Starmer, don't you think it's a bit cold here? Is there any way we can turn the heating up? I'm freezing my Jolly Rogers off. And why are we here, in the House of Commons, during Christmas Eve anyway?
Indeed. It's bitterly cold, Nigel. You can thank Ed Miliband for that. Another one of his genius schemes. He ripped out all the oil heating in Parliament and replaced it with solar panels only. Brilliant. Until it snowed. Anyway, Mr. Cratchit, I'm just soaking up the atmosphere, enjoying every day while I can. 6 months left as Prime Minister, then retirement. And I'll still get my £115,000 a year. Unlike those poor sods in the private sector. I take it you'll want tomorrow off, right, Nigel? The entire day?
Yes, sir. Christmas Day. The one day a year we're still legally allowed to enjoy ourselves, at least for now. So if it's all the same to you, I'd quite like to spend it with the family before someone in Whitehall decides joy is a taxable offence.
Christmas Day? A humbug. If it were up to me, we'd call it Holiday Day 1 and Holiday Day 2, but be done with it. Fine, Nigel, take the day. Go cherish your family or whatever it is you people do. Just remember it's one more day I'm paying you for absolutely nothing. Be back early on Boxing Day to make up for it, Nige.
With respect, Prime Minister, if paying one poor sod for a single quiet day with his family feels outrageous, then I'm not sure socialism's quite working out the way you planned.
Sir, Mr. Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister, is here, sir.
Oh no, not Boris. I don't have time for that complete and utter idiot.
Kia, Nigel, how the devil are you? Merry Christmas, you magnificent desk draggers. What on earth are you two still doing in this frosty crypt? There's an absolutely thumping party across the road. Priti Patel is arm wrestling Jeremy Corbyn. And astonishingly, Corbyn's actually putting up a fight. You're missing the most competitive thing he's done in decades. Come on, you simply must come before the journalists start live streaming the carnage. And Dominic Cummings shuts us down.
Very kind of you, Boris. Truly it is. But I really shouldn't. I've just spent the last 10 minutes reminding Nigel here about the importance of hard work and sacrifice. So if I suddenly pop over to your festive free-for-all, it would completely undermine the message. And besides, I can't risk being photographed anywhere near fun. The pollsters say it confuses my base. Much safer if I stay here, maintaining the illusion of stern responsibility.
Fair enough, Keir. I see you're far too busy maintaining that air of solemn responsibility. But Nigel, come on. You're not going to let your boss hog all the fun, are you? Let's drag you over there before the mince pies are all gone. And someone launches a snowball at the Speaker of the House.
That's awfully kind of you, Mr. Johnson, truly. But I've still a bit of work to finish up for Mr. Starmer before I head home. Christmas Eve with the family. You know, got to be up bright and early for the little ones tearing into their presents. But thank you, really. It means a lot.
Fair enough, Nigel. Well, if you change your mind, just pop over, would you? Bring the whole family, in fact. Smashing people. Absolutely smashing. Love to see them all again. And that goes for you as well, Keir. Should you have a miraculous change of heart, we'll be going all night. And there's another bash tomorrow evening, Christmas Day and Boxing Day. We're essentially running a 48-hour democracy of booze and bad decisions. In the meantime, let me wish you both a very Merry Christmas. Nigel, hope you and your family have the loveliest time. Merry Christmas, old chap. And
Yes.
But I guess my point is you saw it as that.
Yes, yes, of course. There's a spiritual war and there's a physical war. And the physical war could be, that's the unofficial.
Yes.
That's the unofficial version. The spiritual, if you win the spiritual war, it will reflect into the physical war. So I don't know how to call it, our impressive victory was because we won the spiritual war very, very fast.
Well, that leads me,
because you didn't have competition. I mean, they were satanic. I think that made it easier.
In your inaugural, and I was listening on headphones for the translation, so I just want to check this. You said, we have achieved this great victory and made this a safe country, and that's the predicate for everything that follows. And the next thing we're going to do in this term is to work on the economy to make it better.
Grow the economy, yeah.
And you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said I have a 3-point plan, and I'm thinking, I wonder what that is. I don't know, start a Federal Reserve Bank? And you said the first point of my plan is seek God's wisdom.
Yes.
That is what you said.
Yeah, I said that, yeah.
Why would that be the first point of an economic plan?
What would it be? What should be the first part of the plan?
Well, I think it should be.
Yeah.
But I can't.
And most people would think that, right?
I've never heard any leader of any country say that.
Because they probably forgot to represent the people that elect them. Yeah. It's like you ask most of the people that elect the politicians, they say, yeah, that's fine, yeah, I believe that. But then you ask the politician, and he will say, no, that's not. So who is he trying to pandering to? I mean, it doesn't make sense, right?
Do you think...
So it's a common sense thing to seek God's wisdom.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a prerequisite for wise decision making, I would say.
Yes, exactly. So that's the first part of our plan.
I don't know why it makes me laugh. Do you think that that's one of the reasons that your successes, which are just measurable, I'm not saying this for ideological reasons, but just a fact that you've transformed the country in a good way and that you're literally the most popular elected leader in the world, again, not speculation, provable fact, you'd think that would be greeted in the hemisphere as this amazing thing, like what's going on in El Salvador, and instead, there's been this, what's going on in El Salvador?
Yeah.
There's been hostility.
Yes.
Do you think that's why?
I'm not sure, but one of the reasons is that we don't pander to them. So probably they don't like that. It's probably a reason. It's like...
Y ahora que nos vieron hacer un milagro que la verdad hay que darle la gloria a Dios. Porque ¿qué somos nosotros? Sino herramientas todos, herramientas de Dios. Dios quiso sanar nuestro país y lo sanó. A través de un pueblo unido que decidió dejar el pasado atrás y decidió tomar las riendas de su propio destino. Ya veo los titulares. Bukele menciona a Dios y el país debe ser laico. Es que hasta eso nos quieren imponer, que seamos ateos. Nosotros respetamos a todas las religiones, respetamos a los ateos, a los agnósticos, los respetamos y somos sus amigos, pero déjennos creer en Dios. Y déjennos darle la gloria si así lo queremos. ¿En qué les molesta? ¿En qué les afecta? Tal vez les afecta el ejemplo, porque tal vez las poblaciones de sus países a las que les han metido el ateísmo empiecen también o vuelvan a creer en Dios. Ustedes han visto, gracias a Dios y gracias a este pueblo noble y unido, cómo El Salvador pasó de ser el más inseguro al más seguro. Ahora, en estos próximos 5 años, esperen a ver lo que vamos a hacer. Porque seguiremos haciendo lo imposible y seguiremos demostrándole al mundo el ejemplo del Salvador. Que Dios los bendiga a todos y muchas gracias.
Is one of the major gangs,
and they are satanic also.
That was my question. So very
I'm
little.
sorry.
No. But I would hope you will explain it, because very little has been written in the West about this.
They're satanic, yes.
But actually, literally, can you explain?
Well, they didn't start as a satanic organization. They MS-13 started in Los Angeles, in the U.S., because Salvadorans weren't allowed to sell drugs by the Mexican gangs. So they created a gang that was called the 18th Street Gang, because they basically wanted to sell drugs in a street that was 18th Street over there. But then division started they started dividing themselves and started infighting. So they created the MS-13. And then MS-13 started outgrowing the other gangs, and they started exporting the organization to other parts of the U.S. And when Bill Clinton decided to deport those guys, he didn't tell our government at the time, I'm deporting this criminal. They just sent them here. And they came, there were few, but unchecked. At the same time, some laws were passed to protect minors from imprisonment. And of course, the gangs used that to recruit 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. So at the beginning was, some youth causing harm, assaulting, trying to control their territory, selling drugs. Things that are bad, but probably not critical. But they grew, and they started controlling territories. A few years later, they were actually a huge international criminal organization that they have bases in Italy, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, the U.S. Basically, a lot of major cities in the U.S. will have strongholds of.
Right outside Washington, D.C.
Yes, of course. And you have in Long Island and
yes.
In L.A. It's a huge criminal international organization. So they grew and they started, killing more people just to get territory or to fight against rival gangs, or to collect debts or money or whatever. But as the organization grew, they became satanic. They started doing satanic rituals. I don't know exactly when that started, but it was well documented.
Yes.
And in our arrest, we've even found authors and things like that.
Yes, I've seen them.
And so they became a satanic organization. And even when you sometimes when you interview gang members that are in prison, they would say, I'm out of the gang. Of course, they're in prison, but they would say, I'm not a member of the gang anymore. And when they asked them why, I remember I remember the news outlet that made it this, but it's a very well-known news outlet that made this interview with a gang member in person. We allowed them to go into prisons and do the interviews. And the guy that they asked him, how many people have you killed? And he said, I don't remember. He didn't remember how many, probably 10, 20, he didn't remember. And then they asked him, and what is your position in the gang? He explained how he went up in positions, but I left the gang. I said, why did you left the gang? And he said, well, because I was used to kill people, but I killed for territory. I killed to collect money. I killed for extortion. But I came to to this house, and they were about to kill a baby. And the killer that had killed tens of people, said, "Oh, wait, what are we doing? Why are we going to kill that baby?" And they told him, because the beast asked for a baby, so we have to give him a baby. So he said that he couldn't resist that, so he left the gang. He's in prison because he's a killer, but he left the gang because he couldn't tolerate what he was seeing.
So human sacrifice was a part.
Well, in the United States a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, I don't remember exactly, I saw the news that they were going to kill a young girl, or they killed a young girl, I don't exactly remember, because it was a satanic ritual. It happened in the U.S.
From Somalia in the group, please raise your hand. That's for Minnesota, That's called the Great Big Minnesota Scam, with one of the dumbest governors ever in history. I love this Ilan Omar, whatever the hell her name is, with the little turban. I love her. She comes in, does nothing but bitch. She's always complaining. She comes from a country where, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? They have no military, they have no nothing, they have no parliament. They don't know what the hell the word parliament means. They have nothing, they have no police. They police themselves, they kill each other all the time. I love it. She comes to our country, and she's always complaining about, the Constitution allows me to do this. We ought to get her the hell out. She married her brother in order to get in, right? She married her brother. Can you imagine if Donald Trump married his sister? Beautiful. She's a beautiful person. If I married my sister to get my citizenship, do you think I'd last for about 2 hours, or would it be something less than that? She married her brother.
Tommy, thank you so much. This has been a long time in coming. Peace be with you, brother.
It's a pleasure, mate. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you so much for packing us into your very tight diary and attending our put-together studio.
No problem.
As I said off camera, the
It's torture. You're not going to have the BBC News doing this. You're not going to have ITV, GB, anyone. This is real citizen journalism.
We're bringing you content no one else will. We need your help and we need your support. We have no big funders. If you can support our work, please sign up and help us. Just the cost of a coffee. You can support.
In the dark, I better remember to talk slowly because of my accent as well. I remember, okay? They brought me in from the dark through years of censorship. And when I was censored, the media had control, politicians had control. They could lie to the public. They could tell people who I am. But there's been a process that's brought me in from the dark. And I think even last year, when your newspaper made the decision to bring me here, to give me an event like this, in a beautiful venue like this, and I know you faced problems from that. You lost the venue. The venue were put under threat. So it takes a lot of things have happened that have brought me to where I am. But also I think that any public watching this in Norway, when you have, I'm not going to call you alternative because I called you that earlier, when you have a free media, such as Document, one that's not controlled, one that's going against the establishment, They deserve and have earned the people's respect and their support. So I'm very grateful for you inviting me here last year. I'm very grateful for you inviting me again, and for taking the risk in publishing our book Manifesto, because all of these things play their part. So thank you very much. I feel very differently standing in Norway this time than I did last time, because when I travelled to Norway last time, if I remember rightly, it was in September, I was awaiting my prison sentence. I wasn't sure how long I was facing. I knew I had possibly years coming up of solitary confinement or attempts on my life by Muslim gangs within the prison system. I was worried, I was concerned, but when I came and spoke, I've watched back that speech this week, and I spoke of a vision I had. And that vision was that by imprisoning me for my documentary, they're going to bring the world's eyes on that film. I can stand here now a year later, knowing that 167 million people watched that documentary. It played its part in an awakening my country. I'm here fit and healthy again. So all in all, from where we were 12 months ago, I'd say it's mission accomplished at the minute for playing the documentary. Obviously, it resulted in my imprisonment, and a comment you just made about why not claim asylum, and Donald Trump offering political asylum to people who speak out in their home countries. When I came out of prison, there was a large pull and a call to have me apply for asylum in the United States of America. Now, for me personally, I would like my family to be somewhere safe, but I believe that the fight for each one of us as individuals is in our own countries. And if we look at what's happened, I have no doubt now, as I stand here, I will end up back in prison. I do not doubt that at all. I do not doubt that continuing on the path I am in my home country, of whether it be my journalism, my demonstrations, my celebrations, going against the British establishment and the state, I have no doubt it will lead me back to a prison cell. But I also have no doubt now that the public will see it for the injustice it is. And when they see such injustice, then it will help to awaken them. Unfortunately, many negative things have to happen. For example, we saw people imprisoned. We saw Lucy Connolly imprisoned for 31 months. I don't know how many of you are aware of her story. She was a British mother who went on Facebook and made some quite outrageous comments, but they were social media comments that she deleted and apologised for. She was given a 31-month sentence in prison. But the public saw this. They see rapists getting off, they see criminals getting off, they saw criminals released from our prison system, and British mothers and fathers imprisoned because they were upset with the immigration status and the rapes and the murder that was happening in our country. So many negative things have to happen, but my message to any Europeans who are standing against the establishment is don't run away, don't claim asylum, stand and fight for your country, because right now things have changed. The public are backing us. It was a difficult place. Christian just said that he first became aware of me in 2010 when he's gone back through his messages. Now, I started the English Defence League in 2010. Back then, I'm in quite a good position because I can see the change. So I want to give some optimism to people to say that, and I remember standing here a year ago saying, our country's awakening, something's happening, something's brewing, something's building. And in the build-up to September 13th, in all of my videos beforehand, I said this is going to be the biggest event Britain has ever seen. And I knew that because every road I walked down, everywhere I went, even when I went on holiday, every British person, we're coming, we're coming, we're coming. Everywhere. I mean, I pulled up outside, I was in a village with my children at a chip shop, and 3 cars in a row that pulled up outside, all undone their window, said, we'll see you in September 13th, we'll see you in September 13th. So I knew, wow, we have reached the public. We have reached them. And I had a vision, even when I was in prison. So I had a vision when I come here 12 months ago, but when I sat in that cell, I had a vision of fighting back because I felt like they'd been punching me every day whilst I'm locked on solitary confinement. And all I ever think about, if I'm honest, is how am I going to punch them back? What am I going to do to fight back against what they're doing? And that's why when I walked out of that prison that day, I said September 13th. And if I'm honest, I probably wasn't mentally in the right place to be coming out and throwing myself back into work. But September 13th was a massive success. And some people will say, what does that change? What does coming out on the streets in those numbers? It changes nothing, it changes nothing. You've just said Liz Truss sounds like she's reading my scripts. So does Nigel Farage, so does Robert Jenrick. Politicians will ride the wave. We had a vision with the Unite the Kingdom movement, which was to change the culture, you change the politics. If we attempted, and that's why I'd say to other people, if we attempted to start a political party, you need hundreds of millions of pounds. That's something we didn't have. But we brought together social media commentators who had been silenced, attacked, smeared, lied about. We brought them all together to focus on 5 things. Culture, because we all agree British culture is in danger. Free speech, stand against sexual exploitation of minors, Islamisation of our country, mass immigration. These points we can all agree are a danger. So we brought all of them together. We went from 30,000 people on the 30th of July, on the 30th of June, 27th of July, 100,000 people. October, when I was in prison, 150,000 people. And as you've all seen, on the 13th of September, I'd say well in excess of 1 million people taken to the streets. So I am optimistic, reason being, you're all sat here today because your eyes have been opened. How many of you have tried to close them since opening them? You can't close them, can you? Even if you want to. I've tried. Even I had my family stressing at me in the early years. But I'm just like, once you see the danger, once you look into the future of Norway, of Europe, of Britain, of France, once we know what the future looks like if we don't change it. We know what's coming because our eyes are open to the danger, to the threat, and to the demographical change, to the replacement. Our eyes are all open. You can't close them. Yeah? We've now opened millions and millions of British people's eyes. So I'm confident they're not going to close them. And the difference being, do you know, 3 years ago, when the migration trouble started in Ireland, I went to Republic of Ireland. I made a documentary. It's called A Plantation to Rise of the Celts. And I went, probably the same as here, I reckon, at the moment, yeah? And I said, I reckon, if I went out to the street here, where there are migrants, which is what I've done in the Republic of Ireland, I wore a hidden camera. And I went up to women in Killarney. Killarney's a beautiful city with many hotels. Those hotels are full of Syrians, Afghanis, Somalians, Pakistanis, full of the scum of the Middle East being dumped in their country. And I went up to women in that city and said, how do you feel? They don't know I'm recording them. I said, how do you feel? I'm from England. I've been to Ireland lots of times. This has changed in the last year or 2 years. All the women said, we can't walk the streets. We're scared. We're living in danger. One woman said, I work there, I live there. My husband has to walk down to pick me up, to walk me up that road at night. It's not safe anymore. Other women we met were sexually assaulted. Friends were abused. Friends were raped. They all told the truth when I was on a hidden camera. Then I said to the women, okay, I'm a journalist from England. Cameraman, come here. Let me get the cameraman. All of them, I can't say that on camera. I can't say that on camera. So when it comes to free speech, they don't need laws to take away our free speech when the public self-censor anyway. Why were those women scared to tell the truth? Because they were scared, like all of you probably are, or like all of you have been at some point, of losing your career, losing your job, and being physically in danger, because usually government-sponsored, state-sponsored groups or far-left organisations are putting targets on your back. I know last time I come here, there was a far-left activist who stood with a long lens camera photographing every single person that come in order to put them on a website, to endanger them, in order to prevent every one of you exercising your free speech. But that is exactly what we lived under in the UK. And I can tell you right now, that bubble has burst in Britain. It's gone. The same women that would have been worried about speaking are now standing outside hotels across the country screaming. This isn't a working class issue anymore. Middle England is awake. And it was quite easy when, as you said, I'm not an angel, or I don't claim to be an angel, okay? I've never claimed to be an angel. I'm a lad from Luton Town, okay? But at the same time, we have to understand that it was never going to be female doctors or nurses that stood up against Islam and the Islamization of our country, yeah? So we have to take the good with the bad sometimes. But I think that where we're at in the UK, and I've witnessed something else. Do you know when I led the English Defence League? This is 2011. That was when the attack on Christianity, which is something that's my eyes have really been open to recently. I've been on my own journey and my own path. Probably a path I should have gone on a long time ago. And I'm a sinner. I've sinned a lot, yeah. I'm a sinner. But when I looked at, in 2011, 6 councils changed the name of Christmas. They took the word Christ out of Christmas. They called it Winterland or Winter Festival or any of these things. And at the time I was leading the English Defence League. And I learned from the Islamic community. What the Islamic community's leaders do is they just threaten a lot. They threaten. They threaten the government. We won't be able to control the youth. So I learned from that, and I wrote 360 letters to councils in the UK as leader of the English Defence League. And I explained to them, as Christian just explained, due to policing costs in Germany now and in France, Christmas markets can't go ahead because of the costs to police them, because of the dangers. Well, when I led the English Defence League, I sent 360 letters out. If you Google this, you'll read the stories in the paper. They're still there. Because they say that I blackmailed councils. But what I told the council is I made them aware that this year, if you take the word Christ out of Christmas, we're coming to your city. When the English Defence League comes to your city, it's at a cost of £500,000 to £1 million out of your budget to police it. Every time we come to a city, at that time, you have to board up the shops, you shut down the city centre, and you are going to have to let the public know, as the council, the reason for this is because you decided to take the word Christ out of Christmas. From out of 360 councils, that Christmas, not one changed the name or took the word Christ out of Christmas. Now that... Now, I actually find that sad, that they described it as blackmail. I don't describe it as blackmail, but it's a sad state of affairs that you can realise that a threat of a demonstration, it's not even a demonstration, it's the threat of money, is the reason why they decided not to erode our cultural, our days or our heritage. There was then a shopping centre that put, you know, Saudi Arabia toilets, a hole in the floor. In the shopping centre, they put the toilets that were a hole in the floor. I rang the shopping centre and said 7 days to put normal toilets back in. Okay, or we're coming to your city. They changed the toilets. Yeah? And I began to realise very quickly, this is the power the Islamic community have. This is what they do. Luton, my hometown, they are opening a mosque in the shopping centre. I went into the shopping centre. There's a bakery called Robbie's Bakery. 40 years that family bakery has been there. 40 years. I went into the bakery because the mosque was opening next door. Said to the bakery, have you had any consultation about the mosque? They said, no. Do you want the mosque there? No. I went into the Turkish Muslim-owned restaurant next door to that. What do you think, lads? They said, we don't need a mosque in the shopping centre. What? We've got 45 mosques in Luton. Why do we need one in the shopping centre? So I went around all the shops, and then I went to the leader of the shopping centre. I said, I'm letting you know we're going to shut your shopping centre down. That's what we're going to do. Every Saturday, we're going to shut this shopping centre down if you go against the wishes of the majority of the shops in this centre. It's not my wishes. I spoke to all the businesses in this shopping centre. Again, they pulled the plug. They had it literally ready to open. They didn't open a mosque in the shopping centre. Now, these sorts of things are things that I've learned from them. We're about to have an event this Saturday called Putting Christ Back into Christmas. I've gone through my journey. Do you know, and I'll just be totally honest, I despised the church. I got into a position. I started my activism in 2009. I went to my mum's church and I spoke to the priest, Deacon Jerry, his name was. And I asked Deacon Jerry, I'm struggling. with what's happening in this town. I'm struggling the more I've looked into Islam, the teachings of Islam, the more I've seen what's happening to Christians across the Middle East, the more I've seen the attacks, the jihad. And his advice to me was the Lord's Prayer. And he homed in on forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And I said, that's it. That's your answer. Your answer to everything that's happening is to forgive those people. And I see that as weak, and I saw it as weak. And the more that I looked at the Christian church, as we led the English Defence League into towns and cities, and look, the English Defence League was lively, it was boisterous, but at that moment in time, in my country, it was needed. I decided to leave in 2013 because I constantly found myself battling rogue elements that were attaching themselves to our organisation, who stood for something very different. But if there wasn't the loud noise of the English Defence League, none of you would have ever heard of it. And the issues that had been hidden for so long, which was the rape of a generation of our daughters, would probably still be hidden now. So whilst the behaviour, do you know, I just spoke to a lady here, a lady here who was at Pegida's 4th anniversary in Dresden, in Germany. I'd left the English Defence League, I'd gone to jail, I came out of jail, and I went to a Pegida event. And I'd say the Germans, the East Germans were, I think you're very orderly as well, compared to British, okay? We're quite loud, lively, and noisy. But I went to their demonstration, and 30,000 people walked in, and 30,000 people walked out. There was no drunks, there was no chaos, and there was no litter. And I felt embarrassed. I stood there and felt embarrassed about how we'd behaved as an organisation. We were young men. We were young, angry men at the same time. And we had good reason to be angry. All of us have good reason to be angry. I've just picked up my phone this morning and found 3 cases from yesterday of rapes against British women by Afghans and migrants that have been welcomed into the country. When you've grown up in towns experiencing this and seeing your loved ones and people you love fall prey to these gangs, it's a good and justified reason to be angry. But I felt embarrassed about how we'd behaved. I think you can all see now by our demonstrations of how we celebrate our identity and culture. I've learned a lot. I feel like I've done my apprenticeship as such in how to behave, to organise, and how to keep out rogue elements, including infiltration from police and security services, because I also witnessed a lot of that in our organisation and in our movements. But every single time we had an English Defence League demonstration, where if we look at it from a Christian sense, we were the lost sheep, that's who we are, and we were on the streets as a cry for help in every town and city. And what did the Christian leadership do? Every single demonstration, they stood with the Muslims. Every demonstration. They came out every single demonstration and they condemned us. They condemned us without even knowing us. They condemned us without even speaking to us. But they went on to condemn us. And all the points we raised have all now been proven. The reason why I think I now get, whether it be a level of respect or people actually listen, is because they realise I was right. I was telling the truth. I wasn't making it up. And I was talking about these issues when it was difficult to talk about them. Now you see so many talking about them, so many screaming and shouting about them, so many political commentators or newsreaders. Now it's fashionable to speak up for the grooming victims. But when it was difficult to speak up for them, they were silent. In fact, they weren't just silent, they were condemning us. But the church, the church were always on the other side. And then I watched as the church fly rainbow flags. And I've watched as, and asked the question many times with the church, whether they actually believe in Christianity sometimes. I think you're using the Church of England, to push political agendas each time. And then I ask, when I see Christians being massacred, you know, our first ever English Defence League event, our banners read, "Christians in Nigeria, we stand with you." Because as I started going down the rabbit hole, I started reading about what was happening to Christians everywhere. And I couldn't believe that 5 churches could be blown up on Christmas Day in Nigeria. And it doesn't even make the BBC news. But if someone spray painted a mosque, it's world news. So I just couldn't believe what I was witnessing. But I'm talking about this just to my own Christian thing. So I believe the church have absolutely and wholeheartedly betrayed us. I believe the Pope currently is betraying his people as well with his recent comments. But as I then went to as we were holding our first Unite the Kingdom event, you had the Paris Olympics the day before. Who saw the opening ceremony for the Paris Olympics? It was the biggest mockage of Christianity. It was a total, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And from seeing that, I thought, we need a priest to talk at our event. And then as I stood at that event, I saw something happening where someone had a sign. They was just standing on a wall this big, and it said, Christ is King. And the crowds went wild. And it was something was shifting, and I was witnessing it thinking, what is happening here? So we let a priest talk, and then we had our next event on the 27th of July, where 100,000 people were screaming, Christ is King, in Trafalgar Square. And again, something was happening, and I was trying to understand what was happening. But I think as you lose your culture, which many of us have lost, or we see we're losing, as you lose your identity, you start looking for where that culture come from. You start looking for what built your country. I saw an interview with the Queen of England, the Queen. Yeah, I saw an interview with the Queen of Britain, and when they asked her what built Britain, she said the Bible. Now, an embarrassing thing for me is I know the Quran inside out. I don't know the Bible. And I didn't know the Bible. And I hadn't gone through the Bible. And when I landed in prison this most recent time, I asked my pastor,
Guys, I've got to go. I'm really sorry. I'm putting the link of that video in the chat if you want to go watch it. We were 53 minutes in. There is a couple of intermissions, I think. So I've got to go. I'm really sorry. I've got something else I need to deal with. Thanks for listening and everything. I'll probably see you guys tomorrow.